All right, welcome back everyone. We're finishing off our sunset part 2. So everything is completely dried and we're just going to wet it down again, front and back, whichever method works for you. And get the paper nice and moistened up, both sides. I'm starting with one that I did after the fact. So we'll see how this one works, because I haven't done this before where I do the clouds in 2 steps, but I thought it might be easier to do that in 2 steps. So basically we have very yellow clouds, and then they get to this purplish color and blue up here. So we're going to mix all the colors appropriate for that. I still have some on my palette that I might end up using, but we'll keep with the same color harmony that we had before. And we're probably going to need some neutral tint. Better watch my head here. I think I'm okay. So I'm going to put some neutral tint on there. I don't know whether we used Prussian. I know we definitely used cerulean, so we can use that in the clouds above. But it looks like there's a fair amount of purple in there, so I'm going to get rid of this yellow. And I'm going to put some purple in this spot. So this is a bit tilted here, but I think we're going to be okay. Maybe a bit more water. Now these mixtures actually have to be pretty thick, so probably didn't need that extra water there. But I can put some up here that's going to be thicker. Had a bit of blue in there, so I'm just going with that. And then same thing with the neutral tint. We really need to get some thicker mixture here. Get this water off the brush. So they don't look that thick yet, but my palette's on a slant, so that might help a little bit. Let the excess water run down. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same loops with the cerulean. I want to get that a lot thicker. So we'll put that up here. Okay, that should be enough of that. So there's not quite that blue in there. It's probably closer to ultramarine, so I might just mix a bit of ultramarine here. Well, that looks like Prussian, but it's not. I guess there was some left in there. Yeah, it really looks like Prussian. Okay, maybe it's just against the yellow. Okay, so I have some dark ultramarine. I have probably a bit more purple I'm gonna need here, because we have to be at least 2 shades darker than what is already on there. Get some more neutral tint in here. Okay, and then the other mixture I'm going to make is the lavender. Might have to give this a bit more water in here as well. Okay, so I want a thicker mixture of the lavender. This lavender is going kind of funny. It's got interesting texture to it. Okay, so I can see the mixture of that. Hopefully that is enough. So we can start at the top where these lavender clouds are, And we need a brush that has some character to it. These are Chinese brushes, but I think they do a good job when you want to add a bit of character. Now, I'm just going to make sure my paper is still wet because we spent a lot of time mixing. And I'm going to start with my lightest colors. So the lavender up here. I can even add a bit of, that's not bad. It's not as wet as I would like on these corners, and I just left a mark there. And then there's some lavender over here. These are higher up in the sky. And add a little bit of blue into that one. And then, okay, and this kind of goes down like this. We have a lot of cloud coming across here. So I'm just using the lavender to kind of identify where I want the cloud formations at this point. I want a cloud coming across here. Okay, cover that spot, weird spot there. And then there's some right at the horizon. So I'm going to switch to a different brush. I'm going to use my Escoda Perla. And I'm going to mix the lavender with some neutral tint. And just put in these bottoms of some of these clouds that I just threw in. Okay. This one goes right along the horizon line. Okay, and then when the neutral tint hits the yellow, there is a tendency for it to turn green, so I'm adding a little bit of purple in at this stage, just to keep, and I'm going to use that bit there as the top of that cloud. Okay, add a little bit of cerulean in there, now that I've got the purple in. Okay, make sure these go right off the page. And then up here, same thing. I'm going to go back to this one with a bit of, see if I can get that hair off. I think I did, good. With a bit of lavender. And this goes right into here. But I want to retain some of that yellow, but I don't really want it to turn gray. I want it to look yellow as these clouds approach the sun. So I'm throwing that in. It's a bit of the pink with burnt sienna. Okay, rinse off my brush because we have this other cloud that's at the top right here. So that's just lavender, but it looks very blue. That's okay. And then I can put purple in, just trying to keep the color combination here. And then I can actually make this color into the cloud color that goes over here. A bit more yellow. So this is a cloud that goes up like this. And it kind of joins that one. And then this becomes some clouds at the bottom there. So now we have to be kind of careful on the colors. So there was a bit of purple in here. There's a bit of purple in here. Okay. And then some cerulean up here. When you throw a color in, you can throw it in a few other clouds as long as they're still wet. And then along here, I need some actually going along the horizon. So I'm now doing kind of the bottom of these clouds. Okay, so that's not bad. And then I'll do, as well have that one coming off a little bit. Now there was a little bit of yellow in there, but we can't really do yellow. What we can do is, if we want these to shine a bit, is just drop a bit of water in there, and it kind of lightens up the bottom of the cloud. So just a bit of water, clean water. And if you've got little bits of pink like I do here, you can do the same method of moving those out a bit. So this is kind of the wipeout that we're doing at this point. Just to make that look a bit more interesting along that line. This I could probably wipe out a bit because that pink is shining very bright. I think there was a little bit of pink there, so I'll just put some yellow in there. Okay, well, it's not bad. It's kind of giving that glowing effect a little bit. And really we have to wait until it dries to see what we end up with. This little area with the pink up there, I'm not sure I like, so I might just try to throw some lavender over top of that. Yeah, not enough paint on my brush. Yeah, just maybe join this one a bit. Something like that. Okay, so that's what we have now for the sky. I think we're in fairly good shape there. The big issue here is our horizon level. And let me just get my ruler and we'll have a look at that. When I look way back at the horizon, it is very, I'm just going to hold this here. It is very yellow at the back, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go along here with my flat brush and mark it so that I don't have a pencil mark. I'll do that one more time so I can see it. I might put a tiny bit of lavender on my brush while I do this. Okay, so I can see it now, and it does help a little bit to fade your horizon line out there. So I think that is it. It's very important to have your horizon line level, so that's why I spent that time making sure that it's going to show up there nicely. And then we basically have this gray purple color with some yellow in the middle. But what we want to do is we want to create some lines for the waves. And I'm going to take my lavender again. I might even use a bit of purple this time. I think I'm going to mix a bit of purple and a bit of lavender and just try to get some of those lines in a little darker. Maybe a bit too dark there. So I'm wiping off my brush. I don't want it to go too much across the sunlit area. So let's get that mixture again. And that's probably the right consistency. The other one was a bit too dark, but we are going to have our rock out there anyway. So now I'm going fast. I'm trying to angle these lines as I get further down. And the benefit of going fast is you can do some dry brushing. Now here it's much more level. Okay, so that created our waves that we wanted. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to add the darker parts of the waves here. And we probably want to leave a bit more at the front so that we have room for our person walking. Now, because this was done in a prior layer, it's kind of difficult to smooth it out, but we can try to add a bit of more of a layer there, and that might help. And then we're going to add the darker part with a bit of neutral tint and purple, and this is going to form the wave. So I'm making sure I'm doing this right along the line that we just wiped out with, so that it looks like this is the wave that is breaking on the shore. And there's probably a few of these, so you can repeat the process, but just make sure you wipe out at the back of it. Okay, so there's another wave right here. Let's put one there, and then wipe out at the back of it. Okay. Do it here again. This is quite wet in this whole area, but again, wipe out at the back, and it helps form that shoreline where it breaks. Just darkening it up in a few areas. Okay, that does the trick with that. I think we're pretty good there. We will add some other colors in the bottom of this, but while it's still fairly moist, the paper's still kind of floppy. Well, not that floppy. We want to put this island that's right in the middle here. Now, it's important that you don't do the island right on the horizon line. You want to do it in front of it, and you want to probably have it come down this way so that it shows some good contrast to the brightest part of the sun. So we're going to mix some neutral tint here, and we may as well throw in a bit of this ultramarine that we mixed earlier that we didn't seem to use too much. Okay, and we're going to have a second mixture that's a bit warmer. So it's going to have a tiny bit of this yellow. So not green. We'll put some orange in there, or pink. Pink might be better because it's goes along with the whole process, harmony. So that lighter mixture occurs right here where the sun hits it, but we want it to be, we still want it to be pretty dark. That must be Prussian. Somehow I've mixed up my ultramarine and my Prussian, because this is not coming out like ultramarine. It's going very green. Okay, I had to go to my other palette to get my ultramarine because I messed something up somewhere along the line. So I have a mixture here of ultramarine and burnt sienna. I just added too much water to it though. So it's got to be really thick because this has to be 4 or 5 shades darker. On the value scale, it has to be like an 8. So I'm making sure it's a very thick mixture. And then I have this lighter mixture here, which we are going to use for where the light is capturing there. So that's our plan. In order to make sure that this is level, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to put it on my paper, and I'm going to go a bit further up, but I don't want this to be right close to it. That's just more or less a guideline for me. And I'm going to start with the lighter color. Make sure that has the right value that I'm looking for. Okay, and as you can see, it doesn't. It's really not dark enough. So I really want this to be quite dark at this point. Okay, so that's not too bad. This looks like it fades off a bit even. Okay, and then I'm going to add the blue mixture to that. Okay, and just do this. It has this shape, it appears. Mix in some of that brown mixture. That keeps it nice and dark. And then it has this very nice dip in it. That we want to keep. It goes right up here. And then kind of goes down here. Okay. And then the other thing you can do is you can just add some different colors into the darks. And then we're going to make sure that this is going across nicely. Probably the hardest part of this whole painting is just getting that part in. And then I'm going to go back to the brown. Put a little bit of a highlight kind of coming down there. A little bit of highlight there. And there. So it does go off the page, but I want to make sure that I still get that part in. As far as perspective, I could go a little bit further up here. Okay, and if you want, you can just wait a minute or two and you can soften this a bit. So it looks like the sun is kind of coming into it, but you don't need much water at all. It's just a tap, and that will fade out a bit. Okay, and then underneath this, we're going to go back into our purple, which we don't seem to have anymore, but a purple and lavender. And we just want a bit of darkness right underneath here. Okay. That's probably not too bad. You don't want too much there. You just want it to kind of look like it's shining. And then how do we get this to shine on the water? We're now going to put this reflection in, but I think what we'll do is we will start with a damp brush. And what it's like in the picture. And then we're just going to put this in. And this one. Okay. And then what we can do is take our flat brush again and go through these. We didn't want it to do that, but we can wipe that out. So it looks like a reflection on the water. And we just need a bit darker. So a thicker mixture probably. Make this one bigger. Okay, I don't think that's too bad. Okay, and then same thing for the reflection of the sky on the water, or on the beach, or whatever this is, the shore water. So same thing, we're going to take some color, some pink, some yellow, pink. Okay, so we're going to put some pink in here. I'm going to put some, probably some purple. We want this to look very watery. Okay, some more purple. Okay. Maybe some cerulean too. Bit of cerulean. Just a mixture of colors. Yeah, my pink turned to fuchsia, so I'll have to mix it somewhere else. There we go. Okay. Probably go in with neutral tint a bit more here. Not bad. And we'll have to wait for the for this all to dry. Then we can do the person. It's interesting the textures that are on there. We could go with one darker layer. Let's put some dark into here, this corner. And reflecting the sky above. I think that might do it. Okay, and let that dry, and then we'll put our person in. Okay, so adding our figure to our painting, if you choose to do so, the best thing to do is actually draw it right on the paper before, and then you can use your eraser to erase it, because it's not the easiest thing to do. The other thing is figuring out how you want him to be aligned. He should be aligned exactly in the picture, so on line with the bottom of this island that's out here. And then you're going to have him just below the water as well. So the best thing to do, I find, is to draw his height, wherever his height's going to be, and then divide that in half, and then divide that in half, and this becomes his knees, this becomes his hip and wrist, and this becomes the top of his head. Okay, so you can divide this in half. This is his chest. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 marks. Typically, humans are 7 heads tall. So between his chest and his head is the beginning of his head. So his head would start about here. Okay, but there is a neck there as well. So that's something to consider. And start off by doing the head really small, because then you can make adjustments to it. And then his shoulders come down, and they're the widest part of his body. And this is his chest still, so imagine a chest like this. So you can do this idea for the chest. And then the hips come out here. Mine's looking like a female, very much like a female right now. But, and then we have his, below his hips, whatever we want to call it, the crotch. So here's where his shorts might start. Okay, and then his knees. And here he's standing on this leg. So this is his foot. Okay, and this leg is actually kind of slanted like this, maybe not as extreme, with a shoe on the bottom. So he's walking. So now let's turn this into a man. So he has a hoodie on. So we can erase this part here. So the hoodie kind of goes down like this. And then his arms fall kind of out and then in, and then this is his hands. So out, shoulders go out, and then in, and this is his hands. Okay, so that's basically what we've got. And then you have to do this twice because you have to do the reflection, but you don't have to do it exact. So now let's paint that in. I'm looking for a smaller brush. So I'm just going to do them in one color for now. And the trick here is to paint the strongest leg first, because this is the leg that he's balancing on. And actually this is probably a little bit further down, but we'll go from here. And then his head is not a circle. His head is actually bigger at the top and skinnier at the bottom. And then he's got a hoodie on. Okay. This goes out here. This goes out here. He's got a fairly big jacket on, so this should be bigger. Okay. And then this goes like this. We'll get rid of the girlish figure. It's kind of straight the way that his jacket goes down. And maybe I'll switch colors just for fun. Give him some blue shorts. It's okay if these blend into each other. Okay, so there's his blue shorts. And then, oh, I hope I didn't get my hair in there. I probably did. And then his legs are bare. Oh, I don't think I did. Okay. This one goes out like that. This one goes out like that. Okay. It's okay if that just blends in. That's perfectly fine. And then here's his hands. However way he's got his hands. And I notice this looks kind of odd here. I'll straighten out his arm. Straighten out his arm. So his arms are fatter at the top than they are at the bottom. And there's our person. And if you want it to make it look like he's looking on an angle, you can always just put a tiny bit of skin color there. And then for his shoes, this one has a shoe. So we'll put the shoe on. Maybe it's a sandal. but this one lands right in the water. So what you do with that is you just extend that down. Oops, too much water. Just dab it up. Do it again. A bit more water here, but not a lot. Okay, now for the shadow, you don't have to make it perfect, but this one here is important because it's not right where this one is. And actually his legs are way closer together. This one should go down like that. And then the shadow starts doing a bit of this. You know, if you've made some errors, you can just have those extend out a little bit. His arms, his head, shoulders, that kind of thing. So that's his reflection. It doesn't have to be perfect. My legs were, legs were really spread far apart, but it's close enough, I think. It's, you know, it might do. It looks like he's walking out towards it, whereas here he seems to be standing more in contemplation. But yeah, so that's how you draw figures. Okay, so now we're going to put our figure onto our painting. And if I look at the reference photo, he's over here, which I think is not a bad spot. We don't want him in the middle. And he is just below the horizon. So we go from there to there probably. And then the halfway point would be right about there. So I've got those marked. And then, oops, I'm going to do a small head, like so. Then I have his chest is halfway down here. And then it goes out to his hips. So there's his hips. And then halfway down here is his knees. So this one goes out this way. And this one has his weight on it. So it goes straight down. Okay. And then we have the arms, which we are going to do a bit out like that. And then a bit out like that. And the hands end right there. So that's our figure. We can erase these extra marks in the middle. But I think we've got the basis of what we would want. Now we can put, as far as color, I think his head is going to be burnt sienna, but it should be fairly dark because he's in the sunlight. So I'm going to make it a very dark, or sorry, he's in the silhouette. So this is a very tiny head. Okay. And then I'm going to give him a hoodie. I might put a hint of green in there. Just a hint of green. There's no green anywhere else, but now maybe I'll make it kind of a cerulean color. Prussian. Okay. So now I'm going to do his shirt, which goes to about there. He does have a hoodie. We'll put some shadow in for the hoodie. And his arms come down. Okay. Drawing those up a bit. Okay, and then he has some shorts on. We'll make them black shorts. It's okay if those blend into the top. Nothing wrong with that. So there's his shorts. Okay, and then he has some legs. So we'll do his legs in a reddy color. So this one goes down here. It gets a little fat before it gets skinny. And this one gets fat right up here. Okay. That looks all right. And then for his hoodie, we can mix a bit more dark with this. Make it look like the hoodie goes like that. And then it goes up into his neck, which is good. Okay. All right. And then down here, we're going to start doing his reflection. So here we're simply putting in a dark color. And this one comes right down from here. But what we want to do is we want to kind of leave dots and dashes. This part's pretty solid. Okay. It does go fairly far down. I think it needs to be a bit darker, closer to him. Okay. And then we can blur it out a tiny bit. You have to make sure you have a really clean brush though. Okay, so I'm just taking some of it here. Just putting some water on it to kind of blur it a bit there. Okay, so it helps make the whole thing look rather like a reflection, which I think it's okay. The only other thing I think we need is we need a bit of that on the sand or whatever that is on the top. We need a bit of color, making lines across here. So it helps look a little bit transparent. Just trying to find the right combination here of it's like this is catching some light. Okay, soften that out a bit. Yeah. And we'll do the same over here where these reflections got a bit blurry. We want them to be a bit stronger in some areas. Stronger. Yeah, I think that's all right.